A year ago, I derided Wish as generic, corporate, and soulless. Watching it again 1 year later, that sentiment has generally stayed consistent, but I wanted to focus on one thing specifically. Before I do that, let's point out the obvious. The Starboy and the original concept arts. Scrapped concepts like Evil Amaya and the Starboy are great, but I feel like we romanticize them to the point that if Disney was to ever make a remake of Wish, ahem, like what they're doing with Moana, seriously, why does this need a remake? Why are they not marketing the sequel to Moana? I'm sorry, I was talking about Wish. Okay, so if they were to actually remake Wish and incorporate elements like Evil Amaya and the Starboy, I would say it's too little too late. The fandom, or the ironic fandom, more like it, has romanticized the life out of the concepts so much that if we were to get a definitive version, it would be immediately disappointing. And you can't try to impress everyone, because if you try to impress everyone, you ultimately end up impressing no one. Now back to the actual movie, which there's obviously a lot of other creators who are far more qualified to talk about the musical side of things, like meter and the abundance of slant rhymes in this film, but I'm here to talk about how the music fits within the greater narrative. A musical not only needs to sound good, but it also has to weave that music into the fabric of the narrative. To use Disney examples, when you have your opening number, Bells of Notre Dame, from Hunchback, you have a very strong start. It establishes the themes of the film first. Who is the monster? The guy that's deformed, or the guy who is actively murdering people left and right? Then there's Frollo, a man who sees vice and sin everywhere except within, and we demonstrate this. And Frollo's hatred of the Romani people being very, very acute, and how Quasimodo is in the situation he is in right now. Now, let's take a look at Wish's opening number, Welcome to Rosas. Welcome to Rosas is a problem in the narrative. We had an opening narration that establishes the backstory of Rosas and its king. Redundancy isn't necessarily a bad thing, sometimes it serves its purpose, but here it honestly serves no purpose. Slant rhymes and other lyrical oddities aside, do we even learn anything about the actual Kingdom of Rosas that wasn't either told to us in the narration or just tell, don't show? Because one of the lyrics is where the greatest creations are all on display, and this is exactly what they're displaying. All we are getting is just scenes of people walking around, which doesn't really jive well with me, mainly because this is kinda poor of an opening number if you're trying to demonstrate Rosas. It's only just crowd scenes with Asha. Let's contrast this with Family Madrigal from the movie Encanto, which is desperately being emulated because they're trying to Lin-Manuel Miranda without being Lin-Manuel Miranda. We're shown many of the personalities and the powers and the themes, if you try to define the personality of Rosas as a kingdom, all you would know is Mediterranean and Great Place. The song doesn't really establish any themes or concepts we didn't already see, nor does it have any striking imagery. Lion King doesn't establish any major themes or plot points in Circle of Life, but you know from that iconic shot of Pride Rock that this is a very important birth. You don't even need to know the title. All these animals rushing and bowing at the same place, probably some level of grandeur. While talking about motion, motion does also help the story. In theater, we try to avoid something called meandering, which is just sort of running from place to place, doing nothing of actual significance. After all, you are an actor, and in a theater setting, you are going to need to act with your body because obviously you're not going to get a super expensive set like you can in the movies or the fun angles you can get with the camera. This movie has both the cameras and the sets, but it has very poor motion. Choreography in this doesn't mean anything. We're just wandering through the streets of Rosas. Which, okay, fine, but do something with the wandering. It wanders for the sake of wandering. I guess there's one bit where Magnifico is described as having lightning for hands and glowing eyes, and it could be considered foreshadowing, but this is a nearly 3-minute song that could tell us a lot more in 3 minutes than just one bit of foreshadowing. I think, what is this movie, like $200 million in a budget and like 90 minutes long? If the point of an opening number is to wake up your audience, I'm probably sleeping through the next time I watch this, if I ever. Now, let's talk about Magnifico's scenes for a minute. Magnifico's introduction is good as a character perspective, yet we have another redundancy at play. We already saw his backstory in the opening narration. It seems like you can cut the opening narration and this movie would flow a bit better. I'm beginning to think that this was a bad idea thrown in at last minute, or a concept they were going to cut but they didn't want to cut. Easy fix is to start with just Welcome to Rosas. Now we get into the next musical number, At All Costs. This is a love song. Whether it's romantic or familial, irrelevant. Now, in a more competent Disney movie, a hero-villain duet would bring some kind of conflict, or at least have a juxtaposition. Magnifico's parts would have different instrumentation or timing compared to Asha's parts. This creates that juxtaposition that demonstrates two conflicting ideals, even if you don't want them to actually argue on screen. To bring up Hunchback again, the soundtrack lists Heaven's Light and Hellfire as one song, and I can see why. One's a song about Quasimodo seeing Esmeralda as, well, an angel from heaven, and Frollo was denouncing her as an evil succubus. At All Costs, as a song, is a song meant to be sung between two people about each other, not about wishes, and it shows. They should have just written a new song and not repurposed this one. I wonder why we simply didn't have a younger Sabino sing At All Costs to Asha in the crib, while we cut to the present occasionally for Asha's lines, where she sings about wanting his wish granted, and how she wants to fight for him. This would demonstrate just how close their bond is. And honestly, I think what would be nice character work, you can have this be a familial love type song, and still keep the lyrics. You can change the art direction that way. I think it's better than talking or singing towards glowing balls of light. Now we move on to the next song, the I Want song, This Wish. It's an I Want song that doesn't actually say what she wants. However, in some languages, such as Castilian Spanish, she does say what she wants. She wants to return the power of the wishes to their respective owners. And I don't think this works even with that context. I've watched the Latin and the Castilian Spanish versions of it. I forget if Castilian or Latin. I may have mixed them up, but either way, Asha does say what she wants. So, what's the issue with the Latin and or Castilian Spanish dubs, and how this change in actually saying the wish affects the storylines? I think the fact that the lyrics change but the story is unchanged is the problem. See, when you have a conflict, you want the conflict to be more tangible and well established. The wishes we see up until this point are just pure abstractions. And I feel like this is a major missed opportunity to set something up in At All Cost in a song that actually works and have it lead into this wish. The move from At All Costs to This Wish is probably the most damaging part of this movie, because At All Costs really should have been a song that set up the conflicts and stakes of this movie, and This Wish should have been the song that answers that this is going to be what Asha wants and this is what she'll go after. Because if Wish put, like, a single iota of thought into this movie, into these themes, these are actually pretty good themes. Do you want the ability to choose your own fate? Or do you put your fate in someone else's hands? And if you want to do the middle ground and say, okay, everyone gets their wishes back except the people whose wishes are absolutely malicious, Who is the arbiter of where the middle ground is? Who decides this is too dangerous? This is too vague. This is going to bring a lot more harm in the long run, even though it will make you happy in the short term, even though you don't intend for these negative consequences down the line. As George Bernard Shaw put, conflict is the soul of drama. And as everyone else puts it, meaningful conflict is the soul of drama. The conflict happens in this movie, but we don't establish anything. Moana expresses her desire for the sea and how far I'll go. Hercules wants to go the distance to find where he belongs. Mulan wants to be the perfect daughter. It's quite telling when every Disney hero wants something and by the end of their respective films they get it, or they get what they ultimately need. With Asha, I honestly don't know what her personality is besides this princess who wants the wishes returned. Which, okay, that could work if the whole point of this movie was an experience, but this wants to have a plot that's taken seriously. And you kinda need to have meaningful conflict again. At least the cut storyboard shows the characters falling into depressive stupors that can barely move after having their wishes destroyed, and that kinda gives the whole fire under their butts of, okay, these things need to be returned lest they be destroyed and, well, cause everyone lots of pain. Okay, so next song, I'm a Star. Cut. Like, I'm not even joking. This song needs to be cut. It adds nothing to the plot in terms of story, character drama, themes. It's just, I'm going to say a lot of words and not actually be relevant to the storyline at all. It's not even funny. This Is the Thanks I Get has very poor lyric work. And then it also has a very poor climax. Whenever you think of climaxes to Disney villain songs, Frollo passing out after crying out that Esmeralda will burn, Scar saying be prepared as he stands atop a pillar with hyenas beneath him, Ursula taking Ariel's voice. It really doesn't have anything, it just changes at the end of the song, and that's really pathetic. With knowing what I know now, sucky lyric work aside, Queen Amaya's part about how she's turning against her husband comes off as really jarring. She says that he isn't the man she loved and how he loves himself way more. Then we turn around a few scenes later where she is actively trying to find a way to save him. Honestly, Amaya's character is completely annoying in this film because she really doesn't do much, and her character is less of a character and more like whatever the plot needs her to be. I get that every single character is whatever the plot they need to be, that's how narratives work, but Amaya is especially inconsistent about whether she's whole conflicted about turning against Magnifico to completely on board with it. And the less said about the reprise of This Wish feels unearned. Not to mention the lyric work sucks so much that it sucks the enjoyment out of the climax, but, well, I think other creators can explain how that works. So, this is the whole problem with Wish. The early parts of the film is mired by redundancies, as the music and the characters attempt to inform the audience of information that was already given to us by the opening narration. That time could have been used to better establish the conflict and create stronger characterization and motivation between the characters. The songs are robbed of any greater significance to the plot, which is the cardinal sin of a musical, other than sounding really terrible. You can tweak the lyrics to work better all you want. You can dub them in other languages and have it make complete sense in those languages. But at the end of the day, when your songs are fundamentally detached from the story itself, this whole thing is just padding. Those are just my thoughts on Wish 1 year later. Please consider liking, subscribing, tipping the channel on Ko-fi. This is Cyril signing off.